Welcome. We are going to get started, and Ann Taylor, our district supervisor, will be welcoming a few more people in. So you sure nobody wants to move up, get a little cozier, no? Okay. You can see the screen better. I understand. So welcome. I am so happy that you joined us this evening. My name is Vanessa Clark. I'm the assistant superintendent for the Lacey Township School District. We've been talking about PARCC for quite some time now, and what we are going to be doing tonight is presenting some information to you that we hope you will find valuable. We are recording tonight's session, and we will be posting the presentation on our website, so if any of your fellow parents ask if the presentation is available, you can tell them yes, and we will try and have that posted by the end of the week. In case you don't know, our website has a very informative PARCC section, and that's where we will be adding the video along with this presentation, but there are some valuable resources regarding the PARCC on our website. So before we get started, I just wanted to introduce some of our administrators that are here with us this evening, and if you can put a face to a name, perhaps if you see them and you have some PARCC questions or any other questions about the district or our testing program, our curriculum program, you can feel free to ask them or me. Let me introduce our three district supervisors, Will Zielinski, Ann Taylor, and Michelle Amos. We also have here with us our supervisor of guidance, Julie Chickarone, our supervisor at Mill Pond School, Debbie DeSaulnier, our principal of Lacey Township Middle School, Mr. Jason King, and way over here in the spotlight, Ms. Jessica Cellini, supervisor of Forked River School. I also wanted to welcome our three board members, Board President Linda Downing, Board Member Regina DeSenza, and Board Member McAvoy. So, thank you. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody right. Okay. So welcome. And excuse me, I have a little bit of cough, so you just have to bear with me. I will try not to cough into the microphone. We have three goals for tonight, three areas that we want to spend a little bit of time talking to you about. First is the PARCC test design. So there are some differences from the PARCC administration from last year to this year, so we're going to outline what those changes are. We're also going to, Ms. Taylor's going to be talking about interpreting the PARCC score report. So right after the winter holidays, you should have received a copy of your child's individual student report, and that is one of the handouts that we have for you at the table, so if you didn't grab one, please do. Ms. Taylor is going to be talking about the score reports, and then we're going to end the evening. Ms. Chickarone and Mr. Zielinski are going to join us to talk about student participation in the PARCC assessments and the implications for that participation in college and career readiness. We will try not to keep you here for more than an hour. We think we can accomplish what we'd like to accomplish tonight. We do have a very informative video for you at the end, and then at the end of the session, we'll do a question and answer session, and hopefully we'll answer all of your questions. Okay, so the PARCC test design. So what has changed? So as I mentioned, last year, when we administered the PARCC for the very first time, we, along with every other school district in New Jersey, we were faced with many challenges because we had to administer the PARCC test twice. One was a performance-based test that we did in early spring, and then in late spring, we did an end-of-year test. So this year, the state recognized and listened to the feedback that they got from school districts and decided to consolidate testing into one window. So what that means is not only is there only going to be one window, but the time that students are going to be testing is going to be reduced in testing time. So it's going to be approximately 60 minutes total for math and about 30 minutes total for English language arts. So that's less time that students are going to be participating and less time that districts are going to have to prepare rooms and space and scheduling. And so one of the biggest complaints that not only the Lacey Township School District had, it was the amount of instructional time that was lost when students were participating in PARCC tests last year. So consolidating that into one window is going to alleviate some of those problems. But when we talk about the high school as well, and just by show of hands, how many high school parents are here? Any high school? Okay, a few. So you all know, and I'm sure the rest of the parents who are here tonight, thank you so much. I should have brought one with me. The rest of the parents that are here tonight probably have already heard that our high school students have their own devices. And so that, in and of itself, is going to be huge for us this year because the students are going to be able to use their very own Chromebooks to participate in the PARCC test. But let's take that a step further. These students have been working with their Chromebooks since August, and so they've become accustomed to their Chromebooks. They know how to work their Chromebooks, and they're comfortable with them. So that, in and of itself, is really going to alleviate some issues that I think were part of the complaints that the state has heard from school districts. So let me go over just a couple of the changes. This information is going to be posted on our website. I know it's a little hard to see here, but really what we wanted to point out is just to show you the differences in time. So the purple bar shows the amount of hours that was dedicated to testing in the 2014-15 school year last spring, and then the light blue bar shows what the hours are going to be for the administration of PARCC this spring. So you can see that in third grade, last year was approximately 9 3/4 hours. That has been reduced to 8 1/4. So we're talking about a difference of an hour and a half straight across the board. So that to us is significant because it's less time that students are going to be testing. And you can see their overall times include reading, writing, and math across all test units per grade. So again, this information will be available on our website, but we just wanted to show it to you this evening. Okay. The other thing that we wanted to talk about are the fact that there are going to be fewer test units. So you can see that in third grade for the 14-15 school year, for ELA, there's a difference of 1 unit. In math, it's going to stay the same, so the total units is a difference of 1. So last year, 8 units. This administration is going to be 7. 4th and 5th grade, not that significant. It's a difference of 1 unit. For grades 6 and 8, it's a difference of 3 units. So now we're starting to see some significant changes, and that goes for the high school as well. You can see ELA, high school participated in 5 units. In math, they participated in 4 units for a total of 9. And so this year, when the students test in the spring, it's only going to be 6. So those are the primary differences, but some of the other things that we wanted to talk to you about are the differences between performance levels and proficiency levels, and Ms. Taylor is going to be talking about that with you, and she's going to be referring to the handout that we shared with you this evening, and then we'll talk about the other handout at the end of the session.
Thank you. Okay, if you've been in the district in New Jersey or in New Jersey for a while, this report should look familiar to you. It's the New Jersey Ask Score report. I put this up here just as a comparison point and also just to remember that we've been taking the New Jersey Ask in grades 3 through 8 for many, many, many years. We've also been taking the HESPA at the high school for many years. And we received score reports. And the score reports basically gave us a scale score and told us whether our students were proficient or not. And as educators, because I use these both as a teacher when I was still in the classroom and as an administrator, it really didn't give us a lot of information about specific areas that the students may have needed some help with. But we have the PARCC score reports, which, as Dr. Clark said, you received right after the December holidays. And I just want to take a few minutes because sometimes, I know we sent home the explanation with it, but sometimes it's better to hear about it. On the score report, you got much more information, I think, than we ever received with the New Jersey Ask reports. First of all, up at the top, well, actually, it's kind of in the middle, you were given your students, your child's overall student performance with a score graph. You were given the scale score, which ranged anywhere from about 650 up to 850. But then you were given a visual to see very clearly which performance level your child fell into. And rather than just the proficient, not proficient, PARCC refers to them as performance level. So they range from 1 being the lowest to 5 being the highest. But again, as educators, it gives us more information because it's not really just proficient, not proficient. If a child is in that yellow area, then we can look at what specific steps we need to take to get them up into the green. If a child is scoring in the orange area, we have a starting point to do the work that we need to do to help the child get into the yellow, with the goal being each year to move up higher and higher until we get to high school and they're meeting the higher expectations and meeting the graduation requirements. We also have score comparisons on here. Those are the little quadrant charts that you see. You get a feel of how your child did. Actually, that might not be the part. It's kind of far away for me to see, but we get a comparison score of your child's score versus how students scored in the state of New Jersey versus how they scored in comparison to other PARCC states across the country. So we just get a bigger picture of where our children are in comparison to other groups, and that's very helpful too. It's something that we get with the NWEA testing. We get the norms and we can see, how we compare around the country, and it gives us lots of information to work with the students. There are detailed breakdowns. Each test, whether it be the English Language Arts test or the math test, breaks it down into separate components. For literacy, you learn about how they did on literary text and informational text. You learned with the writing how they did on written expression and conventions. And again, as teachers and as educators, it gives us more information on where the strengths and weaknesses are to be able to work with the students. For math, it breaks it down into reasoning and modeling, and it breaks it down into the major content and supporting content for each grade level. And then the icons, one of the things that's very nice about this is it's colorful, and the icons give you a very clear picture. An up arrow means that's an area of strength. A down arrow means that that's an area that we need to work on. And then the horizontal arrow means we're making progress, we're approaching where we need to be. On the score report and everything that I've read, the website understandthescore.org is a very parent-friendly website that you can go to and learn more information about PARCC and more information about the score reports. This graphic really just shows us very clearly what the 5 levels are. Level 1 and level 2 are those areas where we have the most work to do. Those are the students that we want to identify, we want to do more assessment on, and we want to do everything we can do to help them move to higher levels. A large group of students fall into the approaching expectations category, and that's the yellow. Those are our students that are almost there. And this first year of PARCC was a baseline. Everybody took it for the first time, and what I like to think of, our students are just as smart as they've always been. It's just a new experience for them, and the first time you take a new experience, you have a new experience, you don't always do as well. So by having students fall within that approaching expectations, that really sets us up for success, because we know we can take them and we can take what we know about Common Core and we can take what we know about PARCC and get them into the green levels for college and career readiness. And the green, they've met the expectations. They've met the standards for that grade level. The dark green is our students who are excelling. They are the students who are surpassing the expectations for that particular grade level. Another nice thing about these score reports is that it helps to provide a common language. Many of these terms up here you see on those score reports, but you should also be seeing them in the work that your students bring home, in other assessments that they are doing. You should be hearing these words in conversations that you have with your child's teacher. Again, we're talking about performance level. A performance level means that you can always get to the next level. Proficiency is kind of that pass-fail. So we're looking more at a growth model. What's your performance and how do we get to that next performance level? You've heard probably a lot about literary text versus informational text. Literary text is still very much a part of Common Core. Students need to read literature, read narratives, read fictional stories, but then apply a literary analysis to those pieces of text. However, you're going to see more and more informational text, nonfiction text, that your children will be reading and working with and bringing home and using to learn. For writing, there are two main areas of focus. It's not just about mechanics and grammar and, the sentence structure. Written expression is also extremely important. It's about being able to have an organized piece of writing. It's about using the best words to make your ideas very clear to the reader. It's about putting voice into the writing. It's about writing in the proper format for the audience. So the tasks that the students did on PARCC and what they were evaluated on are specific in having the students write for a particular purpose, for a real purpose. Vocabulary, it's not just about memorizing definitions and do you know what this word means. It's about reading a complex text that may have an unfamiliar word, but helping our students learn how to use the context clues to figure out what a word means using the sentences and the words around that particular word. Again, with math, I'll talk about the major content versus supporting content. The math questions are very rigorous. Students need to answer questions that involve the major content that they have learned in the grade level they are currently in. However, when you look at the problems, they are designed in a way where they also have to use their previous knowledge or the supporting content from previous grade levels in order to solve them. They are very rarely one step. They involve lots of thinking and lots of application of skills. Also, assessed through PARCC and reported on the score reports are mathematical reasoning, the thinking that's involved, the thinking processes, the composing and decomposing of numbers, and then modeling. How do we show numerical values? Do we use numbers? Do we use figures? Do we use shapes? Do we use pictures? That's another big part of the assessment, and it's reported to us on the score reports. And again, all of these things we have a report for, so it helps provide the teachers with extra information on who needs more work with vocabulary and learning root words and learning how to gather meaning from context. Who maybe has some gaps in their learning with the supporting content where they need to go back and have some review. So lots of information. And this year was unique. Things were introduced, reports were received a little at a time. We were hoping to get things sooner. We got a little bit in December. Then we got a little more in January, and then we're still expecting more item analysis type reports to come out. So we're digging into the data and we're learning more about it as we go along. The hope is, and what PARCC has shared with us, is that next year we will have all of this information a lot sooner to be able to use it with the students earlier on in September, October, November, and not necessarily in February and March. Okay, I'm going to thank you for listening. I tend to go on and on and on about curriculum because it's just what I do and what I love. I'm going to pass the mic over to Julie Chiccarone, who's going to talk about student participation.
Hello. So you can go to yeah. So the chart up there is basically one of the standardized tests that a student has to complete and pass by the time they graduate. So each year they will be obviously taking the PARCC for math and English language arts, and then they also have the opportunity to pass the requirement through PSATs, which we are administering both as sophomores and as juniors. That happened for the first time this year, so they'll get 2 opportunities to perform on that test. Then they also have the options through the SAT and the ACT, the AccuPlacer, the ASVAB, and at the end, if there's not a passing score, then they have to go through something that's called the portfolio process. It's a long and tedious process. So I will say that, last year there were a lot of questions about whether or not to take the PARCC, and a lot of people refused to take the PARCC. And they're in a situation now where we have a lot of seniors who do not have the graduation requirement needed to, to fulfill the requirement for the standardized testing. So we've had to disrupt their schedules. We've had to disrupt a lot of things for them in order to get them either the testing that they've needed or to go through the portfolio process. The misconception is that if they were to go through the portfolio process, it can be quote unquote easier, is what I've heard from some people. It's actually not. We've been going through it for almost a month at this point. It's a long and tedious process. So it's one of the things that we want to encourage all the kids to get as much standardized testing in as possible to show the proficiency in what they've learned in the classroom. With the PSATs and the SATs, it also gives them a good comprehension as to whether or not they're college and career ready at that point. PSATs gives good indications to whether or not they're eligible for honors or AP classes and how successful they would be in the classroom. So those are things that we also look at through those testing. So it's critical that everybody take the standardized testing as important as possible. Okay? Now, Will.
Part of what the state of New Jersey did, I attended a workshop a little while ago where we always tend to meet with our State Department people. When they talk about standardized testing in PARCC, they have created a little bit of space for us. They created space so that we could administer the test, so that we could evaluate the test. They created space for themselves. You see that by the changes in what they did. And I actually went to the meeting the other day and I thanked the person for listening to the school districts, because when we had the 2 administrations and we occupied so much time of the school year, they went and changed that. That space is going to start to close a little bit. And my slides are really, I guess I get the bad slides. Like I'm talking about participation in PARCC. The federal requirement for participation in standardized testing across the board, all 50 states, is 95% of your population should be tested. Why is that? Well, that's done to see how you're doing. Whether we're all taking the same test or we're taking slightly different tests, and we've looked into this, whether it's PARCC, Smarter Balance, some of the other tests, they're all pretty much the same. The old ask was not the same. It was a one-state test. They couldn't release test items. They'll talk about that in a little bit in the video. Every test item cost $100,000, so we never knew what the state was looking at. Now that we're in a multi-state testing situation, we can look at those tests. They've released 900 items. I think the woman who's going to come on in a minute talks about that. So part of my slides is if our students don't take the test, we don't have the data. We don't know how they're doing, how we're doing, and how we're doing really as a whole community. And I won't lie to you, Lacey did not meet those requirements last year. In fact, we fell way short of our testing requirements. It will require us to do a corrective action plan. And really my role here, I guess for the 20 of you, is please have your children take the test. Look at it. Part of the reasons is that another workshop that I attended recently, the community colleges, 19 in the state of New Jersey, all of them got together and said they're basically going to start using PARCC results. Right? They want to see how the high school students are doing in PARCC so that they can place them properly, whether it's remedial classes, whether it's not remedial classes, whether your student goes to community college or not, and you have a better than 50% chance in Lacey of your children going to a community college. All right? They are going to start using the results. All right? If you don't have those results, you have to do alternative exams, acuplacer exams, and I think Ms. Chiccarone can attest that they're not easier. Okay? They're actually quite a bit harder. So the alternative exams are not any easier when we start looking at them. You know, and there's other things too. You know, PARCC's align itself to SATs and PSATs, so there's a lot of work being done here so that the PARCC is an accurate assessment. You know, so we asked the population, and you're obviously not the whole population. You know, we want you to take the test. We have to reach a 95% goal. We fell way short of that last year. So that's one thing. I have another slide here, I think, too. And yeah, here's our rates. Okay, and it's 25% in ELA. It was 28%. That's district-wide. High school was higher than that, quite a bit higher than that. Okay, and Ms. Chiccarone, I think, didn't really say how bad it is for the group of students that are participating in a portfolio process, missing time out of some of their elective classes. They are, in my words, really suffering through the process. It's not a good process when they could have probably scored a little bit better or gotten themselves out by taking the PARCC exams and doing a little bit differently there. So that was our district statistics, and it's just not good. What was next? Oh, next is our video. So I alluded to the video. It's 10 minutes. I'll show you Barry Ehrlichson. She's actually been to Lacey several times. In my opinion, she's one of the best people that works for the State Department. She's the smartest. They're all politicians, so I don't trust them fully. But she really explains things in very plain language. So it's 10 minutes. I have those charts, and I can show them to you in the Q&A afterwards. Okay, I can show you how they did. And as a whole, you know, the state of New Jersey, PARCC in whole, didn't do well, but I think like Barry talks about a little bit in the video here, it's because it is a new test, because the benchmarks are established purposely low, because what Ms. Taylor was more talking about, it's about the improvement. It's about how can they strive for improvement, how can they get higher. It's not a pass or fail anymore. Okay, so when you're looking at pass-fail, it's not there with the PARCC exam.
But I guess my question is because you had mentioned that high school students have to pass.
They have to meet a certain benchmark, right? So you could view it as a pass-fail.
Yeah, so how many percentage-wise met that benchmark?
I can just give numbers, and as of January, we had 100 students who did not either take the test or did not have passing scores. Now, of those 100, I would say there were probably 60 to 70 who didn't have a test at all. So
Refuse to take the PARCC,
we didn't
refuse to
get-
take other tests, things like that.
Baseline for any test. So we had to have them take the acuplacer, and those were all students who didn't take the PARCC last year, so we had nothing to do.
And what are the other tests? I'm sorry if I.
That's okay.
I was just going to say, maybe if you don't know what the acuplacer is.
Yeah, my kids aren't in high school yet, so I'm still.
The acuplacer is a college placement test. It is something that I apologize, I didn't go over. One of the things, another reason for striving to do, well on all the standardized tests is, if they perform at a certain level with the acuplacer, then they're automatically straight into college level English and college level math. A lot of the times what happens is that they don't have the passing score, and the score that's passing for the state versus what's placement for college is different. So if they don't hit the criteria, what happens is they end up having to take remedial classes, so you pay for it without actually getting credit for it.
So in order for them to take an AP course, they have to pass this test.
Well, so the PSATs, so going back to the PSATs actually indicate how successful they would be in the classroom. So it's not actually an eligibility factor. I think I did say that, so I apologize, but it's actually whether or not they will find success in an honors or an AP class.
Well, I think you mixed two things up there. AP classes that we give, we don't require an entrance exam.
So,
That's different.
Okay.
We're
But
talking
there are
about college
criteria that they
placement
have to get into.
when you look at, yeah, but the criteria,
it's not standardized testing.
Right, it's not
No, no, no.
standardized testing for AP criteria.
Okay.
They got to take certain classes, honors classes. That's on us. We don't care about this for our placement of our students here. But what we do care about is if freshmen and sophomores and juniors are not passing the PARCC, we have to give them that remedial help now. We're not going to wait. We're not going to wait till their senior year anymore. Now that we're getting a feel for what the test looks like, how it's administered, you know, we're getting a look at the questions. Are they truly Common Core aligned? Are they significant questions? And that's what we're able to see now and start picking apart, and then we can help these students with skills that they might not be proficient in much earlier on.
So besides the PARCC test, what is the other test that they have to pass? What's the other option?
The other options are the PSATs.
Okay.
Those are administered sophomore and junior year. The SATs or the ACTs. Those are college placement tests.
And there's a pass-fail criteria for
There
that?
is. It's all on.
Let's listen to Barry a little bit, because I think she goes into that, and then we'll go to Q&As.
Okay.
We'll give Barry a chance. You're all going to go home knowing Barry Ehrlichson.
Welcome again to Education Matters. It's a special edition talking about PARCC. Today, this episode is for parents, what parents should know about PARCC. And with me is Dr. Barry Ehrlichson from the Department of Education, Assistant Commissioner. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you. I'm also a parent.
You're also a parent, and as is I. Let's talk about what PARCC will give. You know, we've heard a lot of anxiety, and a lot of parents have a lot of questions on PARCC, and they'll be getting this information.
Right.
What will this PARCC exam give them? I know it gives them more information they probably have gotten from other
That's right.
previous tests. Is that true?
Absolutely. So just the whole the score report for students is entirely redesigned to be more informative to families. So not only will you find out what your child's overall performance level is, you'll be able to pinpoint strengths and weaknesses. So how is my student doing with literature? How is my student doing with informational text? Are they writing in standard English? Are they developing arguments well when they write to various types of reading passages? So before, that kind of information wasn't there. So now there's a much deeper, richer understanding of each student's work, and then ultimately the parents can be more empowered to have meaningful conversations with teachers.
Will the results also tell where their child did in relation to others?
Yes.
Students in the school and,
So
and
this-
maybe
this-
outside the school.
This is actually a new thing with the PARCC assessments as well. A student score report will show what the school average was, what the district average was, what the state average was, and even what the PARCC consortium average was, so that parents have that relative measure moment where they can say, my student's doing really well compared to his or her peers, compared to the district, compared to the state, compared to PARCC. So that's another dimension to understanding how my child did.
And if a parent has this information, should they then discuss it when they can with this
Yeah.
their kid's
Yeah.
teacher?
So particularly both to expand on the student's strengths. So if a student's doing really well reading literature and understanding and analyzing literary texts, making sure that that student feels that kind of validation in their selection of books in the classroom and their book report projects, but also noting, for instance, perhaps if there's a weakness in informational text, that the parent and teacher talk about, well, how can we select texts, biographies, history, social studies, even science, how do we select those types of reading, those texts that students can read at home, can read with a parent, can read with extra support, so those skills can be built.
One of the other things that I've heard, particularly in the higher grades, but I did see, I saw some parent groups, they were concerned that tests were high stakes, that if their son or daughter took the test and didn't do well, they want to get into a certain program.
Right.
Now, most districts probably use multiple measures, but
Right.
could you explain that?
Well, there's a misunderstanding about what these test results are used for in New Jersey. There are states across the nation that do have state-level policies that say if you don't pass the test, you got to repeat third grade. That's never been the case in New Jersey. In New Jersey, decisions about a student's placement in a next course, the next year, what kinds of supports the student needs, those are all made by districts. Districts, we counsel them and we expect them to use multiple metrics. So not just the test score. Typically, student work in prior courses, parent preference, teacher recommendation. Those things come together to help make decisions that districts need to make about placement in courses and programs.
Now, the opposite of that
Yeah.
is, well, the test doesn't really count because for graduation.
Right.
Because there's multiple measures, as I said before, for graduation, so some of the students didn't take it as seriously. But if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but I remember hearing you talk about how it's more aligned to the SATs
Yes.
than our previous tests.
So in our transition to PARCC, we've created a space for us all to get comfortable with the PARCC assessments before they count for student graduation. It's an important thing to do. It doesn't disadvantage the class of 2016 versus the class of 2015. So we did create an array of different options for students to use to demonstrate that they're ready for graduation. Having said that, the PARCC assessment particularly is tightly aligned with other types of assessments that students do take and do pay a great deal of attention to, like the SAT. One of the things that I'm amazed by in my professional career is that never before have we seen a greater alignment between what we all believe students should know and be able to do prior to leaving high school, and also what good assessment looks like. So even the SAT, starting in March, is being redesigned to be reflective of the Common Core state standards, the ones that New Jersey has adopted. And so the types of items that students are, test questions, the types of test questions that students are going to see on the SAT look a whole lot like what they're going to see in PARCC. Even the AP US History test was redesigned last year and looks a whole lot like an informational text question that a student would see in PARCC. So there's a great deal of alignment. Preparing for one leverages in preparation for the other.
As adults, do we have to relearn how a test is? Because I was with the parent and they were asking me the questions and how is it scored, and they were asking me questions like it was an SAT score. Should they leave it blank? Should they, how you take a test, basically, not whether you know it or not, but how you illuminate the less.
So what they're referring to is the scoring method that was once a part of the SAT, where you lost points for wrong answers. And even the SAT is dropping that scoring practice starting in March. New Jersey and PARCC assessments never had that scoring practice. So a student can receive full credit, a student can receive partial credit, a student can receive no credit for their response, but a student never receives negative credit in a PARCC assessment.
I've heard two other concerns from parents, and actually from others, but one is the privacy of student data. What information will be given, who has the information, is there safeguards put in play for this?
Right. So as I said, I'm a parent too. My students' data is in the data set that we have for PARCC assessments. I think it's first really important to know what we do and do not collect in New Jersey. In New Jersey, we don't collect a student's home address or a parental name or a phone number. There's no way that our data can be used to, say, mass mail a family. That's a concern that I heard last year. We do have to collect data about the administration of the PARCC assessment. So for instance, if a student needs large print, we need to know that that's a need that the student has that we're ultimately going to seek to meet. But we do have contractual relationships in place. Data cannot be used in a commercial way. No one can take PARCC data and sell you a product off of it. That's a prohibited use. And ultimately, the data is, in fact, protected both under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which limits the types of adults and the types of educational organizations that can take a look at the data. But ultimately, districts too have to have access policies in place that limit the access to student data to those that are appropriate, to those who have an educational interest. Typically, your child's teacher has the ability to see your students' data, but it's not something that the entire district gets to see.
Okay.
One footnote to that that I forgot to mention as well. The State Board of Education, that trickled down decisions that we all have to conform to. They met 2 weeks ago, and they said possibly, again, like that space they created, and how they're slowly closing it up. The class of 2021, which is the current 7th graders, PARCC will be their only way out of high school. They haven't passed it yet, but they talked about it in open funding. So that'll change.
Thank you. So we wanted to share that video with you. Again, this video is going to be available on our website. And there are other videos that we are going to be adding that we have found to be very informational and can answer a lot of questions. To get back to some of the points that Barry made, Dr. Ehrlichson, the district, like she mentioned, does take steps to protect student data. So we only share information such as information where a student would need a large print test booklet. So the supervisors, who are the school test coordinators, will share that information with me as the district test coordinator, so that we can place orders for those types of tests. But other than that, all student data is protected in the district, and we are not required to share anything other than what the state asks us to share. And it's not data that would be confidential, such as addresses and student names and so on. And that's a question that we've received very often, and we hope that we've answered that question for you.